Well, hello there, my fellow American. We're now 6 games into the Premier League season, the transfer window is closed, and a major coach has already been fired, which means now is the ideal time to pick a team to bandwagon in the best sports league outside of America. So let's say, as the name of this video implies, you are a clueless American when it comes to the Premier League. You might have played a little FIFA and know the names of Ronaldo and Salah, but with the NFL returning, you don't got the time to learn who are all the big movers and shakers this year. That is why I am here. Let me be your Sherpa, your guide to the most exciting, the most competitive, the most physical sports league outside of America. Let me give you a quick digestible guide on all the big boy clubs in the Prem, how they're looking this season, and hopefully by the end of this video, help you choose a team to bandwagon that won't let you down as much as your American teams. Looking at you, Jets fan. So welcome to a Clueless American's Guide to choosing a Premier League team to bandwagon 2023 edition. And speaking of bandwagoning, yes, that's right, I'm jumping on Team Raid Shadow Legends. Come, join sexy Jeff Goldblum in taking on the latest endgame content in Raid Shadow Legends, the Doom Tower. A giant prison where the Arbiter locked up all the biggest and nastiest baddies thousands of years ago. Think Arkham Asylum from Batman. And just like those legendary prisons, all the big bads are trying to escape. And it's your job to get in there and slap them back into place. But this tower, it's got that dog in it. In order to climb to the top, you're going to need a primo army of champions. And even then, a few of these bosses are going to need some badass specialists for you to get past them. And I could tell you who, but part of the fun is experimenting and trying out teams for yourself. And this month in Raid, they just released a giant new feature called Awakening. And along with that, the brutal new dungeon, the Iron Twins Fortress. And if you're clever enough to defeat the Iron Twins, you'll gain the ability to awaken your champions, giving them a powerful blessing that adds new levels of depth and strategy to the game. And if that wasn't enough, Raid has released a new superpowered version of everyone's favorite champion, Death Knight, aka Ultimate Death Knight. And the best part about this, he's completely free. Just log in and play Raid for 7 days between now and October 27th, and you'll add Ultimate Death Knight to your collection for free. And if you use the promo code DKRISES, you'll receive a bunch of free items to level up your newest champion all the way up to 5-star level 50. So there's never been a better time to get started in Raid, and if you click the link down below or scan my QR code, you'll get $30 worth of unique bonuses for free. We're talking the free Epic Champion Vergis, 200k silver, 1 energy refill, 1 XP boost, and 1 ancient shard so you can summon an awesome champion as soon as you get into the game. And all this free loot will be waiting for you right here. All you have to do is click the link or scan the QR code. Get it, and I'll see you in the game. Now to start off, you are a discerning individual. You know that this year is a World Cup year. So it would be logical to support maybe some American talent in the Premier League. And the biggest name when it comes to the US men's national team is, of course, Captain America himself, Christian Pulisic. The man who was on fire during the pandemic season for Chelsea. And a year ago, I would have wholeheartedly supported pretty much any American going ahead and bandwagoning on Chelsea. But that was a year ago, and the Chelsea ship has gone tits up for the London Giants. Quick recap, 2 years ago, they were champions of all of Europe, and they accomplished this through the demonic sorcery of one Thomas Tuchel. But now, just 6 games into the season, Chelsea have parted ways with their evil genius. Now, many consider Thomas Tuchel to be one of the greatest tactical minds in history, but he is also known in footballing terms as a giant asshole. Just a big ass prick. You know that pretentious douchebag at work that always thinks he's right? Imagine that guy times 100. And that's why this man never lasts more than 3 seasons at any club he goes to. But goddamn, I don't know if this shit show is on him this time. Because what you gotta understand is Chelsea have been through a lot of turmoil this past year. The club that Tuchel formerly coached for was recently sold to a new consortium because their previous owner, Roman Abramovich, had very strong ties to good old Tootin' Putin. And now these new American owners have made a giant colossal mess. They fucked up the transfer window, letting a lot of the world-class defenders go for free, which is not good. Probably should get something back for them. These people had next to no football experience, so it was no surprise when they made an absolute farce of the transfer window. And then, when they finally went out and bought a striker for Tuchel, they gave him 2 games to use him and then fired him. Like, why? For what? Why would you even buy Aubameyang if you're gonna fire Tuchel immediately? You just wasted tens of millions of dollars on players that the next manager might not even want. And apparently they fired him to bring this new guy, Mr. Potter. This dude's been killing it for Brighton over the past couple seasons. There's a lot of hype around this guy, but you just never know. Some managers are just great at managing teams that are underdogs. But it's a completely different beast when you get one of the top 6 in the Prem. And it's just all so strange at Chelsea at the moment. I can't stress this enough. I do not know what this new ownership group is doing. Chelsea were already giants. They were winning trophies for a reason. And you come in and you completely gut the club from the inside out and think you're going to do a better job? That just reeks of arrogance. And I have a sneaking suspicion that there are many Chelsea fans that feel the same. And I think in private, they gladly start buying Russian oil again if it meant Roman Abramovich walking back through that door. My verdict on this team this season, avoid. Avoid, at least for this season and for the foreseeable future. I think this new ownership group is going to have to learn things the hard way. Just as Manchester United fans, ever since Americans took over their club. Speaking of which, let's talk about Manchester United, maybe the most recognizable name in club football. And in my previous videos about the Premier League, as a fan of this club for over 15 years, my advice has always been, don't do it. Do not bandwagon Manchester United. Do not become a fan of Manchester United. Save yourself the pain and support the other team in Manchester if you want to see a team that consistently wins. Because this team has been a laughingstock for the past decade now, and the start of this season was no different. Their sparkling new manager, Erik ten Hag, was touted as the next big thing in football management, earmarked as the possible successor to Pep Guardiola at Man City. But after a shock 2-1 loss to Brighton in the opener, he followed that up with a shambolic 4-0 embarrassment by once relegation fodder Brentford. It looked like Ten Hag was completely out of his depth, that the Premier League was far too big for his shoes. His team didn't just lose, they were utterly outplayed at every level of the game by two teams that were playing in a division below them only a few years ago. The memes on social media were ruthless. The best one wasn't even an intentional meme. You had to accept cookies to see Manchester United's position in the table because they were dead bottom of the league after 2 games. And there was legit concern they might get relegated. That is how awful that team looked. People were calling for Ten Hag's shiny bald head on a pike. And to make things worse, the team they had to play next was Liverpool, a side that just last season many were saying was one of the greatest Premier League teams ever assembled. A team that beat Manchester United so badly last season that they got 2 different managers fired. So on match day 3, Manchester United actually beat Liverpool. Yeah. We were all shocked Pikachu as well. Jadon Sancho sat a couple players down, and then Marcus Rashford hit him on the counter. It was a result that pretty much saved their season. And from then on, they have won 4 games in a row, including beating a top-of-the-table Arsenal side that was undefeated prior. So what the fuck happened? Well, the big difference was Ten Hag grew a pair of balls. He did the unthinkable. He dropped Cristiano Ronaldo and the captain of the team, Harry Maguire, to the bench. Now, as an American, this might shock y'all. Why would anyone bench Ronaldo? Well, the best way to put it to you guys is, you know how in the modern NBA, everything has evolved to be basically, can you shoot a 3? Ronaldo is like a center who can't shoot 3s. Because what you gotta understand is that in modern football, a lot of systems, and Ten Hag systems especially, is predicated on having your offensive players pressing. And that's something that Ronaldo is not only bad at, he's historically one of the worst pressing players of all time. And even though he is a living legend, he's also a huge liability. Without your striker pressing, the system just doesn't work. And Ronaldo, sadly, has become a dinosaur. The game has kind of evolved past him. So after the dismal 2 games of trying to play him and Maguire, he had to bench those 2 and played players that obviously are not as talented as those 2, but were actually capable of running his tactic. And since then, he's won all 4 games. He has now shown the tactical prowess that made him so coveted by all the big clubs in Europe. And in the process, dragged Manchester United from bottom of the league to 5th. Before the season started, I said that top 4 would be an incredible accomplishment with this side. And 2 games in, I was not very hopeful. People were kind of giving it to me on social media, not gonna lie. But now, I think they might just have a chance. Now, to be clear, I still think that they only finished top 6. For as good as this 4-win streak has been, this is still their first year learning a new system, so there's bound to be a lot of teething pains. And also, their transfer window was only okay. Basically bought half of Ten Hag's old Ajax team and Casemiro from Real Madrid. Nice pieces, but no real world beaters. You know what I'm saying? And it'll most likely take a few windows to reshape this team in Ten Hag's image. This is a rebuild year for Manchester United, but the hope is that maybe, just maybe, this is the first solid foundation that they've had since the legendary Sir Alex Fergie left. But it's still early days in the bald-headed era of Manchester United, so let's see how Ten Hag fares for the rest of the season. My verdict on this team, cautiously optimistic, but probably check back next year. Now, the next team we're going to recommend is only for a certain subset of American fans. And those Americans that I'm talking about are the ones who've been following a team that has just sucked dick since the day they were born. So if you belong to a fan base that has worn paper bags over their heads to a home game, then I think you deserve to bandwagon the other team in Manchester. Yes, I'm talking about the defending Premier League champions, Manchester City. Not only are they the defending champions, they're back-to-back champions. And in fact, they've won 4 out of the last 5 seasons. They are more dominant than the Golden State Warriors in their prime. And what makes them even more terrifying is that they won it all last year without playing a true striker. So in the offseason, they went out and bought the best young striker in the world, Erling Haaland. And this dude was seen with the same amount of hype as when LeBron James entered into the NBA. And Haaland has already somehow surpassed all expectations. He doesn't just look like the best young striker in the world. He looks like one of the best players in the world, period. Just look at this 22-year-old ragdolling fully grown man. He's got the size, pace, and skills to be the final form cell of this era. And he is scoring goals at an unheard of rate. For context, to be considered an elite striker in the Premier League, you need to score about 20 goals in 38 games. Haaland has already scored half of that, 10 goals in 6. The all-time single-season record is 34, and this kid might have a legit chance to break it in his first season in the Prem, because Manchester City are force-feeding him the ball. Remember when you were a kid and playing Pee-wee and your coach just told you to give it to the most talented kid? That's literally what they're doing. But they're doing it in the most competitive league in the world. It's obscene. It's absurd. And it's a fucking joke how easy it's making it look. The only questions now, really, are can this kid stay healthy? And can Man City win the Champions League this year? Because if everyone stays healthy, the race for the Golden Boot and the Premier League are pretty much sewn up. That is how dominant Haaland and Manchester City have been. They are playing FIFA on easy mode right now. My verdict on this team, you should only feel good about bandwagoning them if you are a fan of a long-suffering team like the Jets or your dog has cancer. Because simply, they are too fucking good. If you want to be the guy who became a Warriors fan after they got KD, that's the level of shamelessness you need to dick ride this team this year. But honestly though, as a new American fan, they're going to be the most exciting team to watch. With Messi and Ronaldo in the twilight of their career, this Haaland kid and Mbappe are pretty much set to be this next generation's GOATs. And for all my young fans out there who are kind of more fans of players as averse to teams, I'm going Team Haaland over Mbappe all day. But maybe I'm getting a little too ahead of myself because Manchester City aren't even on top of the table right now. That honor, surprisingly to many, and in probably even their own fan base, are Arsenal. Now, Arsenal have been in the same boat as Manchester United fans for the past decade. Yeah, they were awesome in the 90s, but since then, they've kind of been a joke. And last year was no different. They were insanely inconsistent, looking sensational one moment, and then losing to a shit team the next. Now, much of that could be put up to the fact that they are in fact the youngest team in the Premier League, and they also have the youngest manager in the Premier League as well. If you want to see how that season went, they were featured on Amazon's All or Nothing last year. Not sponsored, just found the show hilarious, because after watching it, I was convinced that they should fire Arteta. Because there's this moment where a player is coming back from an ankle injury, right? And they show him getting treatment in the physio table, and Arteta walks up and slaps him on the ankle. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Are you stupid? But apparently I was wrong, because they are slapping dick this season. For one, they had a fantastic transfer window. Their new center back Saliba looks like a quality defender. And stealing Gabriel Jesus away from Man City has been a dinosauric upgrade at the striker position for them. They opened the season by winning their first 5 games. And even though they lost their most recent one to Manchester United, I'm gonna be real with you, as a Man United fan, Arsenal look better than us. This kid, Odegaard, a failed wonderkin over at Real Madrid, has finally blossomed into a baby KDB over at Arsenal. He's pulling the strings in the midfield. He's slicing defenses open. The kid is just a delight to watch play his game. And then you got Martinelli and Saka, who are incredibly exciting on the wings. It is just a really lovable, enjoyable to watch young core players. Now, they did suffer their first loss of the season up to Manchester United, and this is going to be their first big test. How do they respond to this loss? Do they let this affect their confidence and fall back into their inconsistent ways of last year? Or do they learn from the previous season? Do they dig deep, show some grit, and go again? That will be the next step for this young team. And I, for one, am hoping that they can put it all together. Although, my verdict for this team for this season is that even though they started out hot, I think they're a little bit too young to be true title contenders. Not with Man City in the same league. Not this year. And now I guess I should talk about Arsenal's biggest rivals and the team many consider to be the dark horse coming into the season. That, of course, is Tottenham Hotspur. And they've always had a reputation for, they're going to make top 4, but not much else. But for the first season in what seems like a millennia, a lot of pundits actually believe in this team. And that is because they have one of the best mercenary managers in world football, Antonio Conte. And 7 games in, the tiny Italian has already gotten to a handshake war with Thomas Tuchel, while quietly grinding out wins, and has Tottenham sitting 3rd in the table, ready to pounce if anyone slips up. Spurs really do feel like a tiger waiting in the grass right now. They had as good a transfer window as anyone, and the new boy Richarlison seems to be annoying defenses as much as ever, and offers a different dimension to Spurs if Son or Kulusevski are having an off night. And Harry Kane is just doing Harry Kane things. He continues his sensational form from last season. The only way defenders are stopping him in the air right now is to just handball it before it can get to his head, and just pray that VAR isn't a thing anymore. And Sonny Boy, who was having a little bit slow start to the season, came on in the last game and scored a sensational hat-trick in 15 minutes! The quality on 2 of these strikes are simply world class. And if it wasn't for the dominance of Haaland and City, I'd be giving them more hype. But 2022 Man City is a fake, and they are big problems. But I will say this, if City for some reason hits some unforeseen snag, Conte has the ability to make sure that this year is going to be Tottenham's year. Next up is Liverpool. And what the fuck happened to you, bro? Like last season, you were challenging for a historic quad. People wanted to anoint you as the greatest team to ever grace the Premier League. But a month into the new season, you're toiling in 6th, struggling in Europe, although to be fair, every team is struggling in Europe besides Man City. And Kloppy, for the first time in his Liverpool tenure, is actually being questioned. Tuchel got sacked for less. And let me remind you that at the moment, Chelsea is higher in the table than Liverpool. And this team just looks so un-Liverpool, if that makes sense. They're bereft of creativity, and they're all over the place defensively. The loss of Sadio Mane was a way bigger deal than many made it out to be, myself included. But I think the biggest factor with this team has to be the injuries. They're missing a third of the first team, and that's why they have zero creativity in their midfield. And the front three, as electric as they are, they're not that creative either. They need service for them to work. You combine that with the fact that Virgil van Dijk has, for some reason, been trying to block shots with just vibes lately, and then you compound that with the fact that their new $80 million striker Darwin Núñez headbutted a dude and got a 3-match ban for it, and you can kind of understand why they started out a little bit sluggish this year. But with all that said, I wouldn't hit the panic button on them just yet. These problems are solvable, and the cavalry is already on its way. Thiago, their most creative midfielder, is hopefully back to full health soon. And as rocky as the start been, they have the leadership to go ahead and weather this. They're going to find form, and when a couple more players return from the physio table, I can see that in about a month from now, when they play Man City, if they can get a win off of them, they could be right back in the hunt. So Liverpool fans, probably calm down a little bit. It's a long season, you never know. But I'm gonna keep it with you. Chances aren't likely that you're catching Man City. The way that Haaland's banging them in, I don't think Liverpool could afford this slow start. And at this point, they would need an injury to the big Norwegian salmon to get back within a whiff of Man City. But because of this sluggish start and maybe a little bit doom and gloom on the season, this could actually work out for you, my American friend. Because if you are new to the Prem, Liverpool still remains my top choice for neutrals to bandwagon. They're owned by Americans, LeBron owns part of this club. When they have the players, they typically play a wildly exciting brand of football. And what better time to hop in than when they're not looking so hot? It's the best time to bandwagon. You buy low, you sell high, brother. And they got a coach as lovable as Ted Lasso, and the players are world class. Just don't ask Trent Alexander to defend. My verdict on the team, probably not their year this year, but a good bet to be an amazing watch for the rest of the season and many years to come. And now, of course, is the portion of the video where I talk to the cool kids in the back. Everybody loves a good sleeper, and of course it would be easy to suggest Brighton because they've been the early darlings of the season, or maybe even Newcastle because they just got bought by the Saudis. But with Brighton losing Graham Potter and the Saudis not quite opening up their piggy banks yet, I don't know if this season is the season for those two. So I thought I'd go for two more intriguing teams for my American brethren this season. And if you're looking for a team with Ted Lasso vibes, I mean, look no further than Leeds United, or if some would know them, Leeds United States of America. Because not only do they feature Brandon Aronson and Tyler Adams, two of America's brightest young talents in their starting squad, they're also coached by an American, Wisconsin-born Jesse Marsch. Jesse is only the second American-born coach to manage in the Premier League. And it wasn't easy for him when he took over for the legendary and beloved Bielsa. The UK papers universally panned Marsch, literally labeling him the Ted Lasso of the Premier League. And Marsch was not too fond of this label.
I'm not sure Ted Lasso helped.
But under his leadership, he Badger pressed Leeds out of relegation last season, and this season has them punching well over their weight, culminating in a 3-0 victory over Premier League giants Chelsea, in a game that exemplified all the qualities that Americans love. Brandon Aronson, who always tops the charts in distance run, he went ahead and charged down Chelsea's keeper, nipped the ball off of him to open up the scoring. Then you had Tyler Adams, who's just as hardworking, always comes in second in distance run, destroying people in the midfield. And then, of course, you had the American underdog coach, Jesse Marsch, who everyone labeled a dummy, and he goes ahead and outfoxes arguably the best technical mind in club football in Thomas Tuchel. And the cherry on top, as they scored the third goal, he went ahead and Gronk spiked a water bottle. What is not to love? They're as American as a team gets in the Premier League, and they're also owned by Americans. And not just any Americans, they're owned by the San Francisco 49ers. Now, I will preface this to my American fans. You're not rooting for Leeds United to win the league. It's more like rooting for like a midfield team in F1. You're just hoping they get best of the rest. In a World Cup year, what better team as American for you to root for than Leeds United States of America? And the last team I want to talk to you guys about is Brentford FC.
Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah!
This little team that could were only promoted to the Premier League in 2021. It was their first time back to the top flight since 1947. They had just beaten the Nazis when this team was last in the Premier League. But they made good use of their time away from it because they've garnered a reputation for sneak attacking the big teams in the Premier League. They vivisected Manchester United 4-0 in the second game of the season. And their striker, Ivan Toney, if it wasn't for Haaland, this striker would probably be the story of the season because he can do it all. Free kicks, dinks, headers, poaching, and he can even do what most English players cannot. Score a penalty. And not just score any old penalty. This man handles penalties like Ted Bundy handles women. Murders them. You might ask, how could this newly promoted Brentford find a top 3 striker in the league? Well, they moneyball the shit out of their club. Their owner made millions using analytics to find the margins in sports betting, and he thought he can go ahead and apply that to the world of international football. And that's exactly what he did. They've been able to identify players that the market undervalues, going ahead and buying players for only a couple million and then flipping them for tens of millions. They're doing what every FIFA career mode YouTuber does, but in real life. And their lovely lot coach, Thomas Frank, he has these bees drilled to kill. And this Dutchman is not only a shrewd tactician, he also likes to party. When Brentford won promotion to the Premier League for the first time in 74 years, he stayed out with his team and partied until 6 a.m. in the morning.
I like to party.
What a bloke. Verdict for this team? They might actually be more Ted Lasso vibes than Leeds United States of America. And lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't give at least a mention to big ol' Mitro. The Titanic Serbian sits second in the goal charts in the Premier League right now, and he has been absolutely just terrorizing shorter fullbacks at the back post. 6 goals in 6 games. He's only played 1 game where he hasn't scored this season. And for fans who like to follow players more than teams, then big ol' Mitrovic is definitely the big sleeper striker for you this season. And that is going to be it for now. It's a long season, but these are my early favorites and sleepers for you guys to go ahead and bandwagon this year. Now, since it is a long season, I think that I'll probably be checking in once a month throughout the season to keep you updated on how the Premier League is going. All the big juicy storylines, all the drama, and just in general give you a Clueless American's perspective on how things are happening in the big league across the pond. Oh, hello there, it's your favorite fat Asian, and I just want to say thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, go ahead, take your hard direct nipple, smush into a like button right now. Really helps me out in this godforsaken algorithm. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank all my patronos who occasionally buy me delicious pizza. So thank you guys oh so much. And yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for me. Until next time, guys, as always, America.